set in stone. Some people say yes, some people say no. For me, I've been doing sort of full moon rituals and full moon ceremonies and celebrations for like over 20 years. And my period definitely now aligns itself to the moon. But the fact is that, you know, the moon is a powerful teacher. It's a powerful tool, especially in terms of the feminine, because it is feminine. It's about feminine power. And it's another way to, you know, these are just ways to bring ourselves into stillness, to bring ourselves, you know, the new moon, and then 2 weeks later, the full moon. So obviously that goes in that cycle. And we can work with that cycle in terms of period and ovulation. They're just ways to bring us into more communication with Mother Earth, really, with nature, with our environment, more than we are as we sit here, to just bring ourselves into some sort of relationship. And that's really about the wider story, and especially, you know, where we are at this time as a species. You know, where are we today, like in relation to our future? So women have this incredible power. We have this innate rhythm, and, you know, we have this ebb and this flow. We have this tide every single month that moves through us, that is so powerful. So if we start to tap into that, our own powers grow. So our own sense of intuition, listening to, you know, the gut, listening to the yes and listening to the no. And the moon is a way, I mean, with a full moon meditation that I do, but, you know, all meditation, it's a way to just bring yourself into relationship with your own voice and that guidance. And really, when we talk about self-love and we talk about, you know, what it means to really heal and what it means to heal all of these stories, and that, you know, the period story has been very traumatic for a lot of women, and in the collective, and we work as a collective, you know, it's been very traumatic for us. And it's part of the way that we start to dislike ourselves, right? It's part of the way that we start to shut ourselves down. You know, oh, I'm, you know, for 3 days of the month, I'm unclean, or I'm impure, or I'm not okay, or I'm not enough. It's just very quiet messaging. And really, it's like when we start to remember and recover ourselves, you know, these are ways to remember and recover our love for self, you know, and we may never have had any love for self. So that's going to be some proper recovery. But as a collective, you know, bringing the period story and bringing the period into a place of love and softness and kindness. It's the feminine energy, and we hold it at our core just by being female. So the moon is a way to just start to tap into that.
How would you recommend to someone that they do this in a practical way? Because, you know, there might be people listening who just listening to what you're saying and saying, well, okay, the moon, you know, it sounds a bit woo, like I don't get it.
Yes, it's woo woo. It's big woo woo stuff. Yeah.
What's a practical way that someone who is intrigued by this, but doesn't know where to start, can start to connect their the moon cycle with what's happening for them on and their menstrual health?
Well, I feel like, you know, this is the thing about men. When we break all of this stuff down, you know, really it's like being the best. It's being the best. It's coming into the best version of ourselves in that very sort of simplistic way. And, you know, when you talk about menstrual health, you know, it's our, on all levels. So it's that thing of our fertility, our, you know, how we come into all of those positive things. And so really it's the listening is what to hold on to, right? And keep it really basic, just the listening. So but I feel that a great way to begin the relationship with self, and this is what this is about, really. It's about integrating your menstruation and your cycle just into the relationship with yourself. Like, I love this, so I'm going to keep a note of, like, my period, right? And I'm going to keep a note of my cycle, and I'm going to know when I ovulate, and I'm going to keep an eye on that. I'm going to journal around that time, because we do ebb and flow in that time. So often it's that, 14 days in, or the 10 days in, you start to ovulate, and the body is creating, we've been creating the follicle, we've been doing all of that stuff, and then inside, and it's about to release the egg, and energy changes, right? So some people get cramps, as some people get cramps around when they're ovulating, and some people can get moody around that time too. And it's just about listening. So with the moon, I'd say, you don't have to overthink it. It's just like, but keep an eye on it. Like, start a journal, like start journaling. Like, when there's a full moon, and you see it in the sky, you can look it up online, or just, start to keep an eye on it, right? And then you can just, in that full moon, you can just choose very privately, very personally, go out in the garden, connect with nature, take that 5-10 minutes, and just be a part of your own cycle, but within a cycle. And just start to start to listen, like, oh wow, how do I feel on this full moon? How am I feeling? Right? Because the full moon affects people's moods. I mean, that's a separate thing, whether you've got your period or you haven't got your period coming on the full moon, whether it's synced or not, the full moon affects our moods, right? We're like 96-97% water, and the full moon comes in, and it's, there's a super moon coming up in Scorpio on Thursday, and depending on the sign that it's in, it it has different energy, it holds different medicine, it has different energy, and it comes in, and it can kick your behind.
Okay.
So it's like a time, like the period time is a time for reflection and for release, and like, what are we letting go of? Like, what are we releasing? And this menstrual cycle offers you that too. Okay, it's that time of release. When it comes to menstruation, it's like the body's going, lose it, it's releasing, and it gives us that time to come back to ourselves. And what was that month like? What are we releasing? Like, I would start journaling on that.
So just getting a pen and paper and just noticing how you feel, and perhaps noticing where the moon is.
Noticing how you feel, noticing where the moon is, and it's that sort of beginning a relationship with self, like inside. Because of course, from that place, we can start to, when you get really in touch, you become empowered, you become aligned, and in terms of manifesting, right? So we release and we manifest. You're creating space for real manifestation.
Talk a little bit about manifestation and what that actually is, because if you spend a lot of time online, you'll see a lot of people talking about, oh, I manifested this, or I manifested that, and there will be, I'm sure, people who just think, well, what is that? Like, am I just making things come to me from thin air? Well, what is that in a practical sense?
Yeah, no, completely. Well, when I was younger, I was like in my early 20s, I basically, the last thing I wanted to do at that time was do anything like remotely woo-woo. And I was like running from the woo-woo. And I was like, I don't want to be healing, psychic, this, that. I'm like, forget about it. Okay. I've always meditated. Meditating has been my lifeline. I've been doing TM since I was 6, but but in terms of the rest of it, like externally, I wasn't up for it. Like, no. So I sat down, and I went traveling. I was backpacking around India and doing this and doing that. And then I came back, and I was like, I left university, and I was kind of having that sort of mid-20s. It's a little bit of a mid-20s coming up to sort of, you're like a bit of a crisis, tiny, because people have come out of school, come out of college, come out of university, like got it together. And I had not got it together. But I knew that I wanted to be a presenter. And I was like, right, I'm going to manifest this. And so I was about 25, and I basically did I created what at that time was, I suppose is a type of vision board. And I went in and I was like, right, I'm doing this. And at that time, to be a presenter, like, it was kind of everyone and their dog's friend's cousin wanted to be a presenter. So, but I managed to get a job at the BBC and as a PA, and I manifested it. And so I basically did, about a year later, I became a presenter, and it's a story. But what I will say about manifestation, and I'm the big manifesting works. It's about, but it takes two things. It's about co-creating your destiny. Okay, so psychically, people will come and see me, and they'll have things that are destined for them. But if you don't show up to those things, you don't get to manifest them, right? So it's like you have things on your timeline, but we get to choose every day what it is that we're actually manifesting. So that's why energy meets energy. So when you show up every day and you're like, and you're focusing, but it's about focusing and letting go at the same time. So I'm manifesting the love of my life, and I let it go too. Like I'm going to trust, so it's two energies at the same time, the energy of manifestation.
So you put the energy out there of what you want, but you also have to do the work.
You have to do the work. You have to do the work. You have to show up. It's part of being human, right? It's part of the incarnation. We've come here to work it out. Like, we've come here to learn lessons and figure it out and to refine who we are. And, some of that stuff means we have to work at getting what it is that we want to get, what we see for ourselves or vision for ourselves. We have to kind of work to that place, and coming back to ourselves is one of the ways. That's the way that we start to align. Okay, that's the way that we start to embody the life that we want to truly live. Sometimes we don't know the life that we want to truly live. Sometimes there's been a lot of trauma and we're not really sure. And, some of my clients speak to me and they don't know what that feels like or means. Or it's like, well, that's a million miles away from me. But what I say is, when you take a step on that path back to self, you will get there, and it is possible.
Okay, it is possible. So if you really want something, you can create a vision board, or perhaps even write it down. But you have to continue to, as you say, show up, do the work, and don't just expect things to just fall into your lap.
No, things do not fall into our laps. That's not going to be happening, right? It's just not. I always say to people, like, and this is a truth for me, right? So I've been talking about writing a book. It's one of the things that I need to get on and do. And it's like, I could write that book, or I could be sitting here in 10 years' time and not write that book. Okay. I have to write the book. I have to show up every morning to the page and write the book. Okay. And I have to work with all the humanness that comes in, right? All the ego, all that wounded ego stuff of like, oh, I've got to write, I'm showing up again, and what if, and da 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 da. And it's like, yeah, I have to work with that, and I have to refine that, but keep showing up, because that is a part of dynamic manifestation energy.
I feel like you're speaking to me right now.
Lenise, this is for you, baby. Right, when get off the podcast, start writing the book.
yeah. I want to just lead into your work as a psychic. So you're a fourth generation psychic. Can Can you talk a little bit about that work and how